Adolf Hitler's rise from a marginalized and impoverished life, often sleeping rough on the streets of Vienna, to becoming one of the 20th century's most influential figures is a remarkable story of how one man's personal ambition led to one of history's darkest periods. Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in 1889 and spent his childhood in the small town of Linz. His youth was uneventful. Although not particularly clever at school, he acquired an interest in painting and planned to pursue it further at university. But his father, Alois, would not allow it. Adolf would follow in his footsteps and join the civil service. But when Adolf was 13, Alois died suddenly of a heart attack, freeing Adolf to pursue his ambition of becoming an artist. At the age of 18, he left Linz to live and study fine art in Vienna, a cultural and intellectual powerhouse that rivaled Paris at the time. He went through what he thought would be a formality of applying for admission to the Academy of Fine Arts. The scholars described Hitler's work as mundane and uninspired. His application was refused, an event he would later describe as the worst day of his life. This rejection, followed by the death of his beloved mother, devastated Hitler and represented a significant turning point in his life. Within 2 years, Hitler had exhausted his savings and was struggling to survive. He stayed in homeless shelters and men's hostels and at times slept on park benches. His daily life became increasingly precarious. These difficulties contributed to his growing resentment and anger towards some ethnic groups within society, whom he blamed for his situation. The Great War broke out in the summer of 1914, and it would have a lasting effect on Hitler's life. World War I gave Hitler a sense of purpose. He served with distinction on the Western Front and was decorated for valor. Hitler stated that receiving the Iron Cross was the proudest moment of his life. The army had become his family, providing him with a place to call home. So it was with trepidation that Hitler greeted the end of the war in 1918. With nothing to go back to in civilian life, he was determined to stay in the army. The defeat of Germany and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles left Hitler bitterly opposed to the Weimar Republic, which he saw as treacherous and weak. The Treaty of Versailles not only deprived Germany of much of its territorial integrity and military capability, but also imposed crippling financial reparations. These measures damaged the German economy, providing fertile ground for radicalism. Hitler got assigned to the Army Intelligence Unit, where he was responsible for monitoring communist and extremist groups in society. On September 12, 1919, Hitler was assigned to infiltrate a gathering of the German Workers' Party at a Munich beer hall. He was meant to silently take notes and not interfere with events, but one speaker incensed Hitler so much that he couldn't help but respond with an emotional counterargument. Hitler's oratory talents and conviction in his speech captivated the audience, and the party leaders were so impressed that they offered Hitler a position in the party. He quickly rose to prominence, took charge of the party, and began reorganizing it. He rebranded the party as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party for short, and created a modern-looking logo known as swastika. By now, the Weimar Republic's money printing had generated hyperinflation, decimating middle-class savings, resulting in strikes and significant political instability in the country. Hitler took full advantage of the economic crisis to promote himself as a powerful political figure, guiding the Nazi Party from the fringes of German politics to national prominence. The party's message was broad, promising economic revitalization, territorial expansion, and the removal of perceived internal adversaries. On the evening of November 8, 1923, Hitler and his supporters, who were disillusioned with the pace of change, carried out a violent attempt to overthrow the Bavarian state government, which they intended to exploit as a stepping stone to gaining national power by marching on Berlin and toppling the Weimar government. Hitler had misjudged his power. The army and police forces opposing his stormtroopers were better equipped and organized. Within a few days, the coup attempt was thwarted and Hitler was arrested. He was convicted of treason and sentenced to 5 years in prison, of which he served less than 9 months. During his incarceration, he wrote about his ideas and vision for Germany. The resulting book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle, served as a manifesto for the Nazi Party. After failing to seize power by force, Hitler resolved to use the ballot box to gain power and set about reorganizing the party to make it more electable by overseeing a sophisticated propaganda apparatus to spread his message through rallies, speeches, and the effective use of new mass media technologies to foster a cult of personality around himself. Despite all of their efforts, the Nazi Party failed miserably in the May 1928 general election, receiving less than 3% of the vote. The party was one of approximately 30 small political parties vying for public recognition. Hitler appeared to be consigned to obscurity until an event occurred that drastically changed the party's fortunes. The Great Wall Street stock market crash occurred in the United States, ushering in the Great Depression of 1929, which plunged Germany into a severe financial crisis, with unemployment reaching nearly 30% and widespread destitution. This gave the Nazi Party a significant opportunity to win more support. The party appealed to a broad spectrum of the German public, from the unemployed and farmers to the middle class and business elites fearful of communism, by promising jobs, stability, and the rejection of the Versailles Treaty. The Nazis' anti-communist stance drew enormous conservative and industrial backing, resulting in significant financial contributions that enabled the party to purchase offices and broaden its reach throughout society. Strategic thinking, convincing propaganda, and the exploitation of societal concerns and economic desperation propelled the Nazi Party from the fringes of German politics to the center of national power. Electoral victories in 1930 and July 1932 saw the Nazi Party become the largest party in the Reichstag, although it still lacked a clear majority. However, the Nazis' rise to power was not entirely due to public support. Clever political alliances were also important. Conservative elites' miscalculation, believing they could control Hitler and use his popularity to their benefit, enabled his selection as chancellor in January 1933. This important moment highlighted Hitler's political maneuvering prowess, capitalizing on the establishment's underestimation of his ambitions and overestimation of the impact of his popularity among the German people. The consolidation of Hitler's power was executed through a series of calculated steps that dismantled the Weimar Republic's democratic institutions from within. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 was an important event that Hitler used to persuade President Hindenburg to issue the Reichstag Fire Decree. This edict curtailed civil freedoms and authorized the imprisonment of political opponents, thereby suppressing opposition and silencing dissent. The Enabling Act, assisted by legislative intimidation, was passed in March 1933, representing the Weimar Republic's legal death knell. This act gave Hitler the authority to enact laws without the permission of the Reichstag, eliminating the requirement for legislative consent and concentrating power in Hitler's hands. The Nazi regime proceeded quickly to solidify its power, banning all political parties except the Nazi Party, removing political opponents from the civil sector, and establishing Nazi authority over regional governments. The Night of the Long Knives, conducted in June 1934, strengthened Hitler's grip on power by eliminating any internal party threats. The execution of the SA's leadership and other prospective rivals not only put an end to any dissent within the Nazi Party, but also appeased the army and conservative elites, guaranteeing their support and solidifying Hitler's dominance over the state. Hitler's control was complete 2 months later when, following President Hindenburg's death, he united the powers of the Chancellor and President, declaring himself Führer. Once in power, the Nazi dictatorship quickly constructed a totalitarian state defined by the state's absolute rule over all elements of German life and the Führer's personality cult. The regime's control was broad, reaching into German citizens' political, social, and private lives. The secret state police and Gestapo and the SS were instrumental in crushing resistance and instilling fear, running a network of concentration camps for political prisoners and perceived enemies of the state. The education system and youth organizations such as the Hitler Youth and the League of German Girls helped to indoctrinate the next generation, fostering fanatical loyalty to Hitler and the party. Similarly, cultural institutions, literature, and art were misrepresented to serve Nazi propaganda. book-burning events were held to eradicate degenerate influences while promoting Aryan culture. In terms of the economy, the regime pursued rearmament policies along with extensive public works initiatives like the construction of the Autobahn, all of which were debt-financed. These actions helped lower unemployment and foster a sense of economic revival, which in the eyes of many Germans further legitimized Nazi rule. Ultimately, Hitler's rise from obscurity to absolute power would lead Germany to ruin during World War II, killing an estimated 60 million people, and serves as a sobering reminder of the need for societies to guard against the forces of division, bigotry, and dictatorship.
If you liked this video, there are many similar high-quality videos on my channel.